So I wanted to come on here and talk about my journey with leukemia over the past year. Hopefully, uh, putting out this information can help someone and help them see that there is, a way to get through this if you just, believe and you fight and all those good things. So a little bit about me. Um, I did 22 years in the military prior to my diagnosis. I had been retired for 5 years. I've always been in good shape, fit. I was a fitness leader during my time in the military. As far as my health and eating habits, I've always ate healthy. I did consume, a little bit more sugar because I like, pastries and things like that. But, for the most part, I ate very healthy. I ate, proteins. I ate a lot of vegetables, ate a lot of fruit, drank a lot of water. I was in very good health prior to my retirement, 5 years before my diagnosis. And during the 5 years that I retired, none of that really changed with the exception of maybe I probably wasn't working out as much as I was while I was in the service, but I was still working out, 4, 5, 6 times a week. Uh, Now, getting up to the week prior to my diagnosis, um, I had been dealing with a lot of headaches, and I have a history of migraines. So that week prior, I just figured that I was just having a migraine that was taking a little bit longer to get rid of. Um, I've been prescribed some Zumatriptan for my migraines, and I was taking that, but it wasn't working. The headaches and the pain behind my eyes was still there after 2, 3 days. So I decided to make an appointment with my primary care. They prescribed me with another medication to take. I tried to take that; it didn't work. So I was basically dealing with headaches and migraines and fatigue and insomnia and dizziness and all of those things that go with it for about 7 days or so. So when I went to my primary care, they decided to do some blood work just to see, where my levels were at. And my white blood cells was at 1.6, my red blood cells was at 2.7, and my hemoglobin was at 8.5. Now those are all lower than what they should be, and uh, you know I didn't think anything of it because outside of the headaches, I felt as though my body was doing good. I was still able to function. I was still doing the daily things that I do, taking the kids to school, going to practice, going outside, talking to the neighbors, things like that. Still doing all my daily functions, but I was feeling a little bit more fatigued. I would get dizzy if I stood up too fast or moved too fast, but I just accounted that to, the headaches was taking a long time, and that's why I felt that way. So that was, I want to say the day was the 20th of, the 22nd of October is when I made that appointment. Prior to my appointment with my primary care, I had gone to the urgent care 2 days prior to that to try and get my migraines relieved. They gave me the migraine cocktail, which was a bunch of stuff they treated for migraines, including oxygen, and that relieved my symptoms immediately. But regardless of whether I went to the urgent care ER or whether I went to my primary care, when I was at the doctor's office, they treat the migraine symptoms. The pain goes away, and then later that night, it would come right back. So I was dealing with that for about a week. And then maybe after about 7 days of battling this migraine, I decided to make the appointment with the primary. That was during the morning time, and then later that night, it got so bad to the point where I had to go and check myself into the hospital because I was dealing with the migraines. Now I was starting to have a fever, and I just wasn't feeling good. So we got checked into Texas Health Hospital, and they ran more blood tests, and I did a CAT scan of my brain to make sure that everything was good, and they thought that I was possibly showing signs of anemia. That was the first time I ever heard of being anemic, and they thought that was due to my low blood counts. So I stayed there for a few hours at the urgent care for the hospital. They ran a bunch of tests, and after a while, I started feeling better, so I went home. A couple of days later, I was starting my normal routine, and I was trying to make breakfast for my daughters, and I started feeling very, very weak. And I decided, let me sit down for a second. So I sat down for a second, and after about 5 minutes or so, I started feeling, my strength come back. So I was like, okay, I'm going to finish my little morning routine. Started getting back into my morning routine, and I felt dizzy again as I was, cutting up, stuff for breakfast. I started getting dizzy, and I was in the kitchen, and my wife was in our bedroom, and I was the only one out in the front room. So I said I didn't want to pass out in the kitchen, so I tried to make a dash into the bedroom, and I barely made it to the bedroom. I was stumbling all over the house trying to get to the bedroom so that I can let my wife know that, hey, I don't feel good. So I fell out into the bedroom. I think I barely made it on the bed. I knocked over the dresser, I believe. I cut my hand open, or I don't know, something on my body. I don't remember where, but I had some bruises on my body from bumping into things that I was trying to make it to my wife. And at that point, we decided to go to the hospital because that wasn't normal. So the fatigue that I was feeling, the dizziness that I was feeling, the weakness, all that stuff just came to one point, and I just couldn't function anymore. So we checked into the hospital. They ran an EKG on me. The EKG was abnormal. They did blood work, and the blood work that they did about 3 or 4 days prior to with my primary care, the blood work that they had done this day when we checked in after me falling at home, those numbers had decreased. So my white blood cells went from 1.6 to 1.4. My red blood cells went from 2.7 to 2.1. And my hemoglobin went from 8.5 to 7.1. At that time, the doctors at the hospital had said that I was severe. I had severe neutropenia, which means my body just don't fight off any infections. And they said that I may be anemic. So with those, they decided they was going to do a bone marrow biopsy. At that time, I was like, okay, do what you got to do. I figured, this is just like every other time over the past, 7 to 10 days or so. They run some tests, and I'll be out of here in a couple of days or later that day. So they did the bone marrow biopsy. They told me I have to wait for the results to come back. So the results usually take about a week or so to come back. So I was like, well, I guess I got to stay at the hospital for a week because they didn't want me to go home, depending on what the results from the bone marrow might be. So that was on the 25th of October. I believe that was on a Friday that we had checked in. And I stayed at the hospital that weekend. And then on the 27th, the doctor had told me they had got some preliminary results back from the bone marrow biopsy and said that I have acute myeloid leukemia. So at that point, I'd never heard of leukemia, didn't know what leukemia was. So I was like, not sure what it is, but me personally, I feel fine. I don't feel like, anything's wrong. I'd been sitting in the hospital for 2 days just feeling normal, watching TV, eating, no problems, having regular bowel movements, using the bathroom normal, everything was normal. So I just thought, whatever it is, just give me some meds, prescribe me with something that I could pick up at my local pharmacy, and I'll be good. The doctor came in and explained what the process was and told me that, it's not quite that simple. So once they explained it to us, my wife and I, had to make a decision of, now we're dealing with something serious. It's a form of blood cancer, and we have to figure out what we're going to do. Now, during this whole time, I'm the type of person where I don't like to Google stuff. I don't want to look around and figure out what something is, because you start getting into, Google, and you start thinking about the what ifs. I haven't looked at anything as far as leukemia goes, because I did that for maybe about 5 minutes, and all I saw was, the negative feedbacks of it, the low percentage rates of people living, and the survival rates, and all of the side effects, and all of these things. And I was like, I don't want my mind to be thinking about all those things, because I know the type of person I am, and I'll fight whatever it is. Just let me know what I got to do. And another thing that helped me is that when the doctor came in and gave us our diagnosis, she told us that every case is different, which, I found out to be true during my time in the hospital over the last year, is that every case is different. What affects one person may not affect another. What happens with one person may not happen with another. So each case is going to be its own, and you make your case your case. So at that point, when she told us that, I said, I'm not going to look at any information. If I have questions, I'll ask the doctors. And at that point, we had to make a decision on what hospital that we're going to go to get treated. So at the recommendation of the doctor who gave us our diagnosis, we went with a doctor that was closer to our home. That way the wife would be able to come up to the hospital as much as possible. And it would make it a little bit easier for us to function as normal as possible, because my wife still had to go to work until we figure out what was going to happen there. We still had kids that we had to take care of. So it was just a matter of us being close. And also we took the recommendation of our diagnosing doctor with the cancer doctor, who was highly sought. At that point, when we got the diagnosis, I started calling my family and letting my family know what the diagnosis was. And, of course, everyone is worried about what does this mean. And I tried the best that I could to let them know that I feel fine, I'm going to be fine, and whatever challenge that faces me ahead, I'll face it and get over it, and we'll move on with life. So that was that week prior to the diagnosis. After that, which I got the diagnosis on a Sunday. That following day, they transferred me to another Texas Health Hospital, which specializes in cancer treatments, and I will detail that one in the next video. But I just wanted to give everyone just a overview of what was happening prior to my diagnosis, and I'll lay out that year that I just had, starting out week by week, and then it'll go probably month by month. So I'll give you the information based on my perspective and what I saw and what I was dealing with and how I was reacting to the things that was happening. And then my wife will make a video as well, and she will give it to you from her point of view, because whenever you're going through the cancer battle, it's not just the battle between the patient and the disease. It affects all those close to you and those family members who are not close to you. So she'll give you that from her point of view and what she had to deal with and how she handled it. And then I'll talk about what I was feeling during those times as well. So that was the first week. That was the week prior to and the day of my diagnosis. The next video, I'll talk about that first week when I got transferred to the cancer ward at the hospital and what happened from that point. I hope these videos help someone to see that whatever happens, it can be overcome. I'm no way saying that what happened to me is going to be what happens to someone else, but I think that, you know, having a positive mindset, having positive people around you goes a long way, and hopefully this can help you get that same mindset. If you have any questions as far as, you know, what I went through or what happened or what didn't happen or anything at all, just ask them in the comments and I will respond to them, or I'll make a video and on the next video I'll answer those questions. But that was that first week that led up to my diagnosis. The next video will be that first week in the cancer ward and getting chemotherapy. Hope this helps.